Great. Welcome everybody to the September 2024 meeting of Manhattan Community Board One's Land Use, Zoning, and Economic Development Committee. I'm Patrick Cannell, Chair of the committee. Co-Chair Laura Starr is online. Our other co-chair, Netta Pushkari, is probably going to be here shortly. And we have CD1 Chair Tammy Meltzer to my right. One voting item on our agenda, which is a section 195 application, which is a notice of intent to acquire or lease by the city of New York. And I'll turn it over to folks from DCAS who are here to present on the application.
So we have two folks here from DIFTA who will be leading the presentation.
Okay.
So we're here to support for questions.
Great. Come on up.
I'm gonna stand up and get it on the ask.
Great. Just if you could project your voice
Sure.
through the owl.
Okay,
What is the department that you're
New
representing?
York City Department for the Aging.
Department of.
For the agent.
Exactly.
My grandma, eh?
Exactly.
Okay. Ready?
Yeah.
All right, good evening. My name is Michael Ottenbenny, First Deputy Commissioner and Chief Operating Officer at the New York City Department for the Aging. Thank you for the opportunity to discuss our application for relocating our office space to 14 Wall Street. Next slide. Okay, the Department for the Aging is headquartered in Lower Manhattan in the city-owned building at 2 Lafayette Street, New York, 10017, right across the street. NYC Aging has been at this address since the late 1980s. New York City Aging occupies 7 non-contiguous floors of the 24-floor building, 2, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 11, in a small file space on the 10th floor. We house 325 full-time city employees, along with 146 part-time, non-traditional staff such as consultants, silver stars, silver corps, reservists, college aides, interns, Title V community service aides. Those are all older adults that have left workforce and are returning one next to another. NYC Aging provides a number of services and programs to older adults, both as direct service and via contracted service providers. At 2 Lafayette, we have an older adult employment services unit, information referral call center, elderly crime victims resource center, foster grandparent program, bill payer program, health insurance information counseling and assistance program, which basically welfare enrollment and Medicare enrollment, volunteer resource center with approximately 150 clients visiting on a day. Additionally, our oversight auditors, key stakeholders, provider agencies routinely visit 2 Lafayette for meetings, trainings, and various events. Next slide. There we are. Okay, NYC Aging seeks a new and more adequate location to operate. We would relinquish the 136,000 square feet as the floors occupied are not sufficient to support operations and in various states of disrepair due to the age of the facility and its infrastructure. The cost of renovation while keeping the agency in this location would be prohibitive, and the renovation process could take up to 10 years.
Next slide.
Next slide.
Yeah, going down to 80. All right, go
It's a
ahead.
very small footprint, 7 floors, really tiny.
Hello, everyone. My name is Buta Roy, Deputy Chief Operating Officer at the New York City Department for the Aging. So the city seeks to lease 80,802 square feet, which is comprised of 80,000 square feet of office space and 802 square feet of storage space at 14 Wall Street for use by NYC Aging. Next slide, please. The site occupies the 11th, 12th, and 14th, really the 13th floors, accessible from the building lobby by elevator and via staircase between the 3 contiguous floors. NYC Aging will be the largest tenant at this address. Next slide, please. In contrast with the current space, the proposed relocation site is ideal. The building entry is clean and inviting. Operations would be contained to 3 contiguous floors. NYC Aging will have new, more robust training rooms. Next slide, please.
Each floor will have a large pantry eating space, which we currently don't have. There's excellent access to mass transit. The space is well-designed and consistent throughout. The new office space will support staff and allow more efficient and effective operations and delivery of service. Across the country, there's a growing older adult population. In fact, by December 31st of this year, every baby boomer will be 60 years old. 60 plus years old. Accordingly, service needs are certain to increase as the population does over the coming years. 14 Wall Street would allow for NYC aging staff and training space to expand.
Next slide, please. The next couple of slides are the plans for each of the floors. So this slide shows the storage space in the basement, the 802 square feet. Next slide, please. Following that, this is the 11th floor. When you're ready, we can go on to the next slide.
Steel Carter Ledyard space, right?
Excuse me?
The law firm Carter and Ledyard was there.
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, to the left is Broadway, to the top is Pine, to the right is.
So this floor, the 12th floor, will include the training and almost all of our public-facing space, including an information and referral call center and our Medicare enrollment support program. When you're ready, the next slide. And this is the final floor, the 14th floor, which is the 37th floor. You ready? The next slide.
That's it. So thank you for the opportunity to discuss NYC aging application for office space at 14 Wall Street. Staff are excited by the prospect of new and ideal space. It's smaller than we have, but it's more efficient.
Yeah, we'll go around for committee member questions. I have a couple. It might be more for DCAS than you guys necessarily, but I want to know about this is going to be a significant renovation. The law firm that was there had been there for nearly 100 years. I mean, a very long time. And that space is going to require a lot of work. Yeah.
It's a former insurance company. They
Okay.
renovated it 6 years ago.
Okay.
They moved out 4 years ago during COVID, so it's been empty for 4 years, brand new 6 years ago.
So this is,
Yeah, we saw it, it's pretty much moving ready.
okay,
Yeah,
that's good.
it
That's,
doesn't
well, then that answers my question, which was around the alteration or renovation construction and how you're going to manage to do that, given that it's within the NYPD secure zone for the New York Stock Exchange.
Who was the other person from your team?
Chris Grove. So yeah, the cost for what renovations need to happen are gonna be pretty minimal. I'm not aware of how the what you just referenced will affect that. I'm not sure if the level of renovation needed would,
Yeah, it doesn't sound like it.
yeah, I don't think it would, but
One of the things we're concerned about and ask that you be sensitive to is it is a residential neighborhood
Okay.
largely. You have residential buildings all around the stock exchange now, 15 Broad and plenty more. And the noise and disturbance from those kinds of renovations can be difficult, but it doesn't sound like you have much.
No,
That's
it's, the largest construction would be removing cubicles and putting in training rooms.
That's,
Everything else, I mean, we saw it versus, it's just,
Yeah.
we saw it and said, let's take it as it is, we'll live with the, but it's 6 years old, empty floor.
Michael,
Couple of questions. Are you taking over sublease?
Yep.
Second,
I don't think so.
if you're asking if it's a sublease,
are you taking over a sublease?
I don't believe you.
And what is the term of the lease?
20.
Okay, and how much were you paying at 2 Lafayette and how much are you paying here?
I can get back to the board on the specific lease terms, but I don't have a figure in front of me right now.
Usually we don't disclose that until after the deal.
And
Are you saving money or are you spending money?
Well, the city owns the building at 2 Lafayette. It's a city-owned building, so this is at 14. We're doing this 195 to acquire, so we're going to be leasing. So we are spending money.
Alice?
So I have a question as to why. Is this not the same building that in 2016 received an award for design excellence from BSK Architects for the interior of the very place that you're moving out of? Where do I have that
Two
wrong?
Lafayette.
Yeah,
Okay, so
well, no, this was, okay, I will,
Well, so.
I understand correctly, but
So we can see.
it's, no. Formerly remote divisions of the Department of Youth and Community Development and Department of Aging have moved into a newly renovated office.
yes, half the building was renovated
Uh-huh.
10 years ago. Our
Right.
bottom half hasn't been.
Okay, so it had gone 110,000 square feet across 7 floors of the historic Court Square building. I guess I'm asking that quite a bit, it was so well done by this superb architectural firm that it won a Design Excellence Award. So I was kind of curious why
So it's
are you
22
moving out
floors.
after 10 years?
22 floors, 10 got renovated 10 years ago. That's the award.
Right,
The bottom half of the building hasn't been renovated.
and this didn't
And-
take 10 years to renovate. I'm curious, I'm an
No, because
architect.
they emptied it out.
Uh-huh,
The plan that was proposed to us was empty a floor, renovate. Well, we go there, empty a floor, renovate. It'd take a year to do each floor. So it's 7 years, a year to plan it. So it's close to,
well, it's not 10, but
Well,
whatever, it was a little
up
hard
to
to.
10
You can
and
build-
more than 8. So up between 8 and 10 years.
Well, I want to challenge that, but whatever, I guess the biggest question is what is the city's intention with Two Lafayette? Obviously, you're moving out, there's something they want to do with Two Lafayette. Why would you be paying money for another building?
People have already come to see it with interest after it's renovated.
There are other agencies that are interested.
So it will remain a city-owned property?
Yes.
And so other agencies find it adequate for themselves, but,
TYCD is the top half. They could get the bottom half, they would jump at it. They have, let's say, another building down William Street, which doesn't make sense to be split in half. They could have everyone. in.
so to all your knowledge, there's absolutely no intention on the part of the city of New York to do something other than keep that building, public building for city use.
Yep, that's correct.
Okay, that's for the record.
Any other questions? Anybody online?
Any changes?
Vicky has a hand up, like, hey.
Vicky?
I had my hand up. I'm sorry, I didn't know. But now that I have the floor, Patrick, to go back to your question, when you asked about what I wrote down is logistics of how this project is going to take place at that very tight location, meaning that there will be lots of containers and bins and coming and going. And is that what you were asking as well? Or did I not get that?
That's what I was asking about, but I believe the
Yeah.
answer is that there's not going to be much because while it's not totally turnkey, it's really cosmetic interior stuff that they need to do. It's not a huge reno like
It's
Right.
William.
Okay,
specifically.
but they're still going to have containers and some demo, and they're gonna adhere to regular hours and all that kind of stuff. That's gonna be taxing on that corner. But okay, thank you so much.
Richard. Sorry, Richard.
Yeah, so with this move, is there gonna be any planned change in staffing?
Not that I know.
Okay, so on-site staffing will remain the same, the 320 or whatever.
Yes, so the
That's the plan.
Tempest headquarters will just simply move to this new location. Yes, in its entirety.
Okay, and the now increase in cost, is that already budgeted? Or is there something that needs to be done to cover it? You get council?
I believe that OMB's approval precedes 195 planning approval process. So I believe that cost has been budgeted.
So you described your floors as being in sort of dire straits in some way. I'm not sure I understand how those floors are going to be utilized at a price that's going to be acceptable and, what's the plan when we move that for those floors?
That's going to be, it's certainly not going to be, I'm not sure if the agencies which have an interest in it need the spaces immediately And I'm not sure whether a condition of their move-in, whether it be youth or consumer protection, would have interest in space, would want renovations done before they move in. That would just be a future interagency conversation. That hasn't.
So there's gonna be 80,000 square foot of commercial space that the city of New York probably desperately needs laying fallow until, I'm just not sure.
130,000.
No, they're giving up. Oh, you're right,
Giving up
136,000. Sorry. Yeah, 136.
As I understand it, and I'm speaking, just as in the conversation, plan is to renovate it all at once, rather than stack it and do it over 7 or 8 years, which are when you got third that time, we third the cost. When we estimated in 2020, before COVID, it was 80-some million dollars. That was 5 years ago.
So now you're saying it'll be less costly if we do it all at once, but the idea is that the city is going to take this 136,000 square feet, renovate it, and somebody else will,
Another
Receive
state
it.
agency, like,
but somehow the city will be able to afford it when it's done all at
they're
once.
moving someone out of private space.
Yeah.
Into free space, that probably plan saves money altogether as well.
I don't know if you're allowed to get them or can give us more information on that, but I'm really curious about it. I think it's an interesting, yeah.
It's sort of a manifold reasoning for, as Joseph mentioned before, the layout of the current space just isn't ideal. So there's not contiguous floors within the building, and the layout.
So I understand that. I'm sorry to interrupt. I'm not understanding is what happens after. We agree it's fine. They should move. Everyone should have a grand, nice, wonderful space. No one would argue with that. My question is, this 136,000, what will happen?
Right.
What's the plan?
Right. I can, so unfortunately, our lease negotiator wasn't able to make this meeting. But I can confer with him and can email the community board with whatever updated information we have. If there have been any updates to that conversation.
Okay, that's great. What's your name again?
Alex Truskowski.
Okay, so our district manager will, right, get back to him. We'll reach out to him. Alex.
We can make that ask of our district manager.
Great.
Do you have Zach's email?
I believe I do, yes.
Yeah, so if you can follow up with Zach, that would be good. Thank you.
All right, any other questions? If not, who moves to a vote? I don't see any issues. I would assume we're all okay with this.
I'm gonna abstain until I get.
Right. Anybody else? Okay, so we'll do a favorable resolution. One question. Okay, all in favor?
I'll second the question.
Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
You're in favor, Vicky? Okay. Any
I am,
opposed?
thank you.
Are you- Jesus. One abstention. Two abstention.
Are you abstaining?
Yes.
Okay, two abstentions. Motion still passes. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Take care. All right, next on our agenda, everyone should have gotten some information, emailed around about the installation of 5G towers at various spots throughout Community Board 1. We're slated to have a discussion about that. Alice, I think you know a little bit about this from the Environmental Protection Committee standpoint. Could you maybe
Yeah,
tee us up?
so, people, just generally 5G is a, broadband service that we all have on our phones, some type of it, whether what level it is. I'm no guru on that, but a company called City Bridge put in the Link 5G kiosks that you see throughout the city now. These are these 10-foot stainless steel boxes that give free Wi-Fi and internet connection and 311 access. The company, I think, fell on Smart Times or whatever, and was affiliated with another company, but it's still called City Bridge. And they are working now with the city on a new franchise agreement to put in 5G through these very large towers. So in addition to what you see out with these 10-foot things, are, thank you, Abby, has just put up a shot of one of these. And that happens to be in Clinton, in Brooklyn. And this is a 32.5-foot pole. You want to put that picture probably back up just for a second. I think it's a little easier to see. First one. Yeah, that's actually in Chinatown on the corner of Mulberry Bayard. And worth going by to understand the sort of impacts of these. They're about 2 feet wide and there's over 32 feet high. And so the city is contracted to put over 4,000 of these into the city by 2025. And the idea of this originally was to utilize, it was a good idea, the old phone booths, which were then defunct, and then put in the city bridge link that you see, a stainless steel thing that you've seen. But this is a new piece of infrastructure, and a lot of people have a lot of questions about them. And every elected has come out with some sense of opposition, and most of the community boards have looked at. And our own borough president has written a very thoughtful letter, which I think we can circulate, which basically looked to say, let's put a moratorium a little bit. Let's slow down the process. Let's consider how we might be able to use this infrastructure that we already have in the city for 5G on tops of buildings, on poles that already exist, which we do currently. And do we really need to have this additive piece on our city's public sidewalks? And there are concerns, everything from privacy to environmental concerns about electromagnetic radiation. Wherever you may stand on this issue, there are many issues. And what's extraordinary is they were supposed to go in areas that were considered digital deserts, in other words, areas that didn't have internet. And arguably, you could say that FiDi and Tribeca are not two of those districts. So the question is need, and that was something that Tammy thought would be something maybe folks would want to discuss in this committee in terms of its kind of economic foundation, do we really need it? One of the agreements that the company, City Bridge, had made with the city of New York is that they would have to have one carrier in the pole, and you can have 5 carriers using these poles. So T-Mobile and Spectrum and AT&T and whoever, you have to have one in order to put the pole in. But in fact, we've been led to believe through Gotham, New York, who published an article just last month, that in fact, there are no carriers yet that have signed up for this. And there's a lot of very, I'd say fuzzy information, but we will get more clarity, as Patrick pointed out, next Monday at Environmental Protection, when OTI, the Office of Technology and Innovation, will come to speak to us. Another thing to know is that these never came before the community boards, and it wasn't up until about a year and a half ago that some of the not-for-profit preservation groups got wind of these, and of course were quite concerned just by the basic aesthetics of them, or lack thereof, and started to call these to question. And our own Congressman Nadler at the time reached out and realized there's an FCC regulation 106 that required that the State Historic Preservation Office review each and every application for a site. And that is how this comes to us. And we then had, as a community board, had to apply to become a consulting party to be able to receive the information and consult on it. In other words, opine and heard and comment. And that's where we're at right now. We have this agreement. We are party to the groups that now are looking over these sites. And the basic groups are all the preservation groups in New York. Then from the Landmark Conservancy, City Club, Municipal Art Society, Historic District Council, Carnegie Hall Neighbors, all of the groups that are in each neighborhood. And unfortunately, we don't have anybody really in Lower Manhattan that's working on preservation issues fully, that's engaged in this. So it's up to us as a community board to really look at this and look at it very carefully. We'll also go to landmarks where I'll be working with Jason on looking at each and every one of these sites. And there are 7 sites. One site has already been rejected by the State Historic Preservation Office before we even had a look at it. And that was 55 Water Street. The other 7 sites, which I guess you all can see, are 90 Wall, 88 Pine, 75 South Street, 110 William Street, 8 Spruce Street, 66 Harrison Street, and 100 North Moore Street. So you want to picture, you want to put up those towers again, and just 1 second.
I shall,
Yeah.
but before I go there, while
Yeah.
I'm getting it, the thing that I find that's really important for us in CB1 to think about, and the reason why we're discussing it first here, is one, we have become now a consulting party, so we will officially get notification, which we didn't before. There is a land use aspect of it because, again, they are on the sidewalks. So we have an entire historic district with tiny little sidewalks. How many things are we gonna put on our sidewalks is a real concern. And the other thing is, there's an economic driver. These are all built, on spec. So they are not building to need, and in fact, the requirement from their contract is that it is 90% of the units that are installed are supposed to be north of 96th Street and in the outer boroughs. If there's one thing that we are incredibly fortunate to have in CB1, we have a bid that does free Wi-Fi. We have the Battery Park City Authority that does free Wi-Fi. We have Brookfield Center and the Oculus. We have a ton of free Wi-Fi in our neighborhood. We have a ton of good, robust signals and services. I mean, there's a reason the contract was done because 90% of them need to be in the areas that are needed. I find it unconscionable that they're looking to put 7 sites out of, Alice, I believe, we know it's 200
That's a pilot, right.
in our neighborhood, in the pilot. And technically, if you're going by their required stats, they should be talking to us about maybe 1, if not 2. Because when they're looking at high need, anything south of 96th Street should be no more than 10%. And there are other towers. So we're already not in the right implementation zone. So for economic development purposes and contracting, that's why it starts here as a conversation, because they don't understand how you build on spec in the 10% zone.
We will elaborate. What is the role that we have through this agreement?
I
Community
can,
board.
Yeah,
I'll go
let's,
there.
let's see if there's,
So the
And
main, okay, so we have one way that we really can opine. And it's the only way that we can make a difference is by looking at each site and writing the State Historic Preservation Office. It is only that FCC regulation that gets sort of some traction with something that's going to be rejected as a site. That is it. And I have,
Advisory, just not.
yes, of course, like everything else. But when you have 7 preservation groups and your community board saying you don't want it there, so far, that's actually been quite effective in being heard. And so in the case of 55 Wall Street, or Water Street rather, you know, we didn't even have a chance to opine, none of the, and the preservation groups did, we weren't even aware 55 Water was up there. And, they prevailed because of the arguments that they presented that I have not yet read it, that somehow this was inappropriate. And so that's really where the work will be done, mostly in Jason's committee. And then in our committee, we will be looking at all the other aspects that we were talking about. The inequity, the lack of appropriate rollout, the lack of appropriate communication, the fact that we should be using infrastructure we already have in New York City and not adding on to it. And the like, you know, the questions of the environmental concerns, the health concerns, the privacy issues that have come up, which I assume we may hear more of in the upcoming meetings. So that's where, will that stop things? Not until there's legislation that says maybe these things aren't so helpful, but the only place you could stop a location is through the letters and the comments that we will provide, and other groups and other people. I mean, anybody from the public can comment to the State Historic Preservation Office, which will.
Could I better understand who the user base is for these things? I mean, in my, experience, it's street people.
That's correct.
I mean, if we put something
Oh,
at 8
street people.
Spruce,
Yeah, no,
We-
no,
we-
I meant all people use internet though, or broadband.
Just saying it's the street people who are using the free phones and charging their batteries.
But these are,
This is that-
this is slightly different because it's five,
Router. or
This is like-
whatever.
it's like a super router. for
So,
5G.
so if 8
Signal.
Spruce Street goes through, for example, all of the Gary Building, all of Southbridge could get free Wi-Fi?
No,
Well, why not?
maybe.
I thought the answer would be yes to that in a weird
I
way.
think it's spreading signal, it's signal.
but Why would you?
Signal.
Because you're paying the company, you're still paying the carrier that bought space in the pole.
Here.
It's-
It's like the way they look, so it doesn't matter.
No, free Wi-Fi is.
Vicky,
Well, yeah, we're not.
Vicky. Go ahead,
Yes.
Vicky, go.
So I'm obviously familiar with this and I've been looking at it. And I have a question for the committee, way down the road, but something I want your input on. This is all private profitable companies, right? And if, for example, we cannot get away from having these towers in our historic district, could we charge an exorbitant yearly rent since they are on public sidewalks? And I'm thinking $500,000 per tower. Is that something that is even possible or a reasonable ask or a clever ask?
Well, they have a licensing agreement, the franchise licensing commission or whatever it's called, has an agreement and you can read it and, that part of the agreement isn't, that isn't part of the
They're
agreement.
already paying nothing.
Yeah, and nor is there a way to amend it probably as such, but.
Oh, no, kidding, really? So it's not an option at all that they're using public property for private benefit?
That's a great question, Vicky, we can try and find
They
that
are
answer.
paying New York City. They are paying, of course they're paying.
Vincent?
Sorry, I arrived late, but I have a question. Who decides where the locations are?
Well, that's a very good question.
They do.
Without any, nobody, the Downtown Alliance, the community board, and no preservation group I know was contacted to describe whether that was the right site that they were looking at.
There was no
None of
need
this,
assessment.
no
that we
discussion.
I think if we would come to a resolution, I think wouldn't we come to a rule where we can put them around schools or areas like libraries? Because I know during COVID, a biggest issue was kids that needed Wi-Fi.
Remember, this isn't Wi-Fi, this is a 5G tower.
Well,
It's
5G.
self-service, but
It's self-service.
You get free Wi-Fi now through the Link 5Gs that you see on the street. You know the silver box? That's a done deal, that
Yeah.
free Wi-Fi. This allows that plus the cell service of 5G, so this much
So this is not for
speedier.
Wi-Fi, this is just for cell phones.
That's right.
Could these be dangerous in any way?
Yeah,
They do both.
I don't think that's a great idea.
They can be very dangerous.
So
Mike,
That's another point, yes.
Let's say Netta and then.
getting back to
Michael
where
and Netta,
where Vicky was going. When you have a cell tower,
Then Pat.
when you had all the old cell towers on top of the individual buildings, those companies were paying the landlord or the owner a decent rent every month, 10 grand,
Right.
20 grand. I was aware of some of those deals. So what is the difference here? In other words, are these 5G towers replacing everything that's on top of buildings?
I think
they're in addition.
It's in addition.
It's, first of all, they're being built on spec. So we don't know the answer to that yet because we've never had a presentation. We would love to understand why and how. They're gonna come, and that's a question that should be asked when they present at the Environmental Protection Committee. That is the date that they would come in September, so they'll be here then. Tonight was really to get a basic layout of it to understand.
Yeah.
Economic part,
Because
the
my
layout.
basic point is that
Let's spread the
if
word.
the income from the cell towers in these privately owned buildings goes away, these privately owned buildings are in trouble.
That's an interesting point. I mean, that has not come up, actually. It's a good point.
But I do, yeah, good point. Netta and then Pat.
So I think they boost the existing signal that's already in that area. That's why different carriers will sign up with them, like let's say AT&T and Verizon. So your they boost the signal.
But why aren't they signing up? They're not signing up. And the
Well,
idea is that they
That's
believe
the
that,
issue.
right, that they're obsolete, that they're, well. I think-
No, I thought you were gonna say the idea is that they may one day, but.
They may be okay, but I mean,
Right.
when you build.
I mean, it seems.
Hold on, Vincent, let Pat go. Pat?
Concerned if, has there been any kind of medical research on the exposure to the whatever these towers emit? And if it's not, for people who are just walking by casually, what about if the towers are in front of your building and you're constantly exposed to whatever they emit?
100%, there are a huge amount of questions on that.
Exactly.
And that will definitely, in fact, we'll have a very short presentation from many groups have contacted me about going to the Environmental Protection Committee, wanting people to be aware of some of these questions and legislation they're working on. And so I think that you'll get some of that on next Monday. Yes.
I would encourage everybody who is interested in this topic to pay attention to what's gonna go on in environmental protection. Especially the siting locations like 66 Harrison, 8 Spruce, 100 North Moore, 95 Wall, 88 Pine, 75 South Street. Because it's really very, very, let's see if I can find.
That's gonna happen in your committee.
Yes, we even moved the date of the committee.
I know, so we're gonna go over every one of them. The other thing to know is, I think is extraordinary, is that in the submission packet, which is 90 pages for each site,
Yep.
and in those 90 pages, there isn't one photograph showing what the pole would look like as a mock-up. Nothing. So there's no way for anyone, when you go, we still gonna have to do.
After I saw it, and they just show like the site where it's gonna be and
Right.
describe
We
it, you
should,
know?
yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah,
So,
it's really good work, but.
Yeah.
this-
Anyway, so there's a lot of, lack of communication here.
Alice,
So-
Alice, it's Vicky. I just want to confirm that the environmental committee is seeing you next week because LPC was moved to the end of the month just before the monthly
Correct.
meeting, right? Okay,
That's-
just checking that we got that.
We're seeing it 2 more times. You're gonna look at the siting, and we're gonna look at all the other issues.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Richard, and then we'll close it up.
So, yeah, this is land use and economic development, and so the question is, as I pointed out, one of the questions for us is economics. Where's the information for us to opine on the economics? Can we get information to opine on the economics? Cost of this, the city, who maintains it, what happens when it's obsolete, what happens if the company
That's a
goes?
question at the environment.
Exactly.
Well, these are economic,
No, that,
focusing on those.
those actually can be, there are a lot of those questions that aren't answered clearly. But if you go on the OTI site, the Office of Technology and Innovation, and there is a link to Link 5G. And in that is a licensing agreement with the city of New York, which lays out a lot of the requirements. And then there are 3 amendments that further, fine tune it. But some of those questions, like how much they cost, somebody had told me, though I didn't read it anywhere, that these cost approximately $200,000 a unit. They weigh over 40 tons, is that possible? And that they, that they're filled with electronics, so if they get shoved over, a real problem, and maintaining is a problem, and, you hear things, but what's written in this document is all that we have. So that licensing agreement is I think answers our question.
And what we'll do is we'll have, sorry to jump on you there. We'll have Zach tomorrow in preparation for Monday, send around the links to the
Okay, that'd be-
OTI and the 5G because we're jumping in here late. We're trying to catch up as much as we can. It's
Just
big.
hard.
And what is the term of the lease? I mean, is this forever?
Well, they're
What happens when the next technology comes along?
Well, what you should, what's interesting is that they already did not abide by the agreement. And in fact, so much so that the state controller, DiNapoli, did an audit on this company and found them in default. So, what happens? They rearranged the contract so it allowed them to go forward, give the city less money,
I'm
things
just
like
talking
that.
about the right to be on the sidewalk. Is that an unlimited right?
Oh, in terms of time, I see. That I don't know. I mean, they have till 2025, build
My
4,000 units.
experience is one day to hear something better.
Well, that's one of the biggest questions I have is what happens when this becomes obsolete and you have those monstrosities weighing tons on your city
Pat,
streets.
is your hand still up?
Like NYC kiosks that you see around.
Right.
Because they're very well utilized anymore.
No, and we asked them for data, how well are they being used in our neighborhoods? Remember, they did not have that information for us. What data supports the need for this? You know,
Yeah.
that's.
Pat has her hand up again. Pat, go ahead.
No, sorry, I was trying to down.
Okay.
Well, Richard, you get a question about the economics of the finances. I think there's a difference between that and the economic development. I don't see an economic development angle with.
I mean, that's the question. What is the city getting out of this? Is it costing the city?
Well, I mean, for our neighborhood and businesses, I don't see them benefiting in it in
That,
any way.
that too,
I see,
that too.
And
I
I think
see if
if
you're
blocking,
talking $200,000 a pole, right, to the city versus $200,000 to a small building for a yearly contract, I think that's a lot of money.
Mhm.
If you are, you know, one of the low-rise building owners, that's a lot of money that the city's taking, and where is it? Like, is it in the clear path? Is it considered street furniture? How do people get around it? Why would you put it outside the front door of a school?
Yeah.
I mean, all of those kinds of
Yeah.
questions, just like maybe
There's always, then there's one more, which is easy to forget, which is what happens when it becomes obsolete
Correct.
or the company goes under?
Yep.
What is it called? How does it, what happens to those? And, you know, I
we have
that
stories from the fireboxes and the telephone.
firefighters and often from wind farms. Those stuff, those things stay up there.
I think we don't need more obstacles on our sidewalks.
Right.
And any of that.
Maybe
That's
provide-
just a transportation
provide shade.
issue Still.
I think the best thing would be, I mean, if this is gonna be for consumers, like people on this regular street, like Cebu cell phone signal, I don't see a reason why we do it in the city. I see more of a better reason, like maybe like Prospect Park, where the signals are shoddy, Central Park maybe, you know, things like
Maybe
that,
along
but
the
not.
outskirts of Park Trust, anywhere towards the edge of the water where.
Yeah, it's like where signals are shoddy, not in the middle of the city.
Well, anyway, it's gonna be dealt with in two other committees at least.
Yeah.
you know,
So
we
we
must be
can
that.
Follow along.
I mean, the best thing you can do, and we will definitely get this going around, is to make your comments known and write them into the comment form that's being received by the different various groups, which we'll send around, because otherwise, to have just the community board's resolution is not gonna be impactful. So, you know, some of this, even if it's not necessarily on the historic aspects of that state historic preservation will look at, it'll be heard by the mayor's office and such. So I think it's important to make sure the public comments.
Okay, and speaking of public comments, want committee members to look at the capital and expense budget requests. Look at the ones that we did last year and the responses that we got. There's a link to it in the agenda that Lucy circulated today for this meeting. If you'll please do a little homework before our next meeting, take a look at that. Let me know if there's anything, me, Nana, and Laura know if there's anything that we need to add for the land use committee. The relevant agencies are typically the Department of City Planning, and think of any economic development things as well, then, you know, but just have a look at those and see if there's anything that needs to go on or come on.
What's our time frame on all that again?
I believe the community board by the charter has to submit it by the end of October, is that right? So we'll vote as a board at an October full board meeting on whatever we come up with. In the meantime, which means next month, we'll need to make sure we have our committee's input to give to the executive committee at the. Okay. All right, with that, we can adjourn.
Right?
Before-
All right.